Good morning, Joe. How you doing today?
Doing all right. Vertical. That's a good start. Had a little bit of coffee.
That's great. Just plain coffee, no vodka in the coffee?
No, man, it's too early for that.
Oh,
Too
true.
early for that.
True. So
How you
what's
doing,
been going?
Quebec?
I'm doing all right. What's up with you? I think people want to hear from you. It's been a while since they've maybe seen you on screen.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Did you
Uh,
go on vacation, Joe?
yeah. I got over to Greece. Had some family business to kind of attend to. I got that done. Got back to Colorado, and yeah, now back on the grind. Even though I was working over there, but it's nice to be home. So here I am back on the AMA, and hopefully I'll join you on one of these development updates. There's a lot going on in the ecosystem, and the cool thing is a lot of it is not really, I don't know, anything to do with me. Like you can look at what Duck Pools has coming up this week with their V2. I think that's something that most people in the ecosystem should really consider supporting because they build things the right way, in my opinion, where you have end-to-end open source code, you have great documentation, which is huge for people coming into the ecosystem. It's kind of like it's a mind share problem, right? I've always been a very, very big advocate of open source code because it creates common standards, right? And those common standards are powerful because not only does it allow people to kind of come in and contribute their own mind space with less friction, but it also has this ability to create common compatible standards, whether it's in one environment or across multiple environments. And that's, it's a force multiplier, in my opinion. And if I look at like the best adopted standard in the crypto space at this point is EVM, right? And what EVM has done, to some degree is special, but to some degree it isn't, right? You can look at all of these different EVM compatible chains, and essentially what they've done is they've forked into new environments. How many Uniswaps are on different EVM chains, and it's like, well, how did that come to be? It came to be with a strong open source foundation, right? And so whenever we have this contractual layer, I think that especially in like the early era of these networks, having that mind share and kind of open source standards are probably the most powerful thing that ecosystem can create long term. The problem is it's not sexy, right? Usually, like
Not sexy to the masses. It's definitely sexy to me, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even for like teams, I can understand it. Like currently with Rosen, we're going through a process of auditing, right? And so that means we're throwing a lot of money to an auditor to audit code that's public. And so then some people will say, well, that's not good for us because we just have like thrown capital at this, and we would like an advantage based on the capital allocation that we provided. I don't give a shit about that. I want everyone to be able to verify the code. I think that's the most important thing.
Yep.
So Duck Pools is coming around. I'd recommend people in the ecosystem look into that, just because, looking at the amount of capital, that they've kind of gone through, they've delivered a lot, and I respect that a lot. So I'll be showing up for that. The other thing is Blitz, right? Mick's been on the grind for 2 years.
That man is insane. 100%.
Yeah, 2 years out of pocket. I've had the pleasure of meeting Mick in person twice, and he's got a passion, right? And if somebody has a passion, and obviously they're throwing a lot of proof of work into their passion, I'm going to show up and support that. So I'm really excited to see, the kind of early launch of Blitz TCG, and I'll try to show up and support Mick because I respect what he's done. I respect how he's done it.
Yeah, he's definitely has an interesting economy with his burning of cards mechanism there. That's pretty cool. I think he said it's got 250 users now, or 250 accounts that have logged on since his last promotion, which is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. Then I guess we have a video coming out with myself and Alex.
Right.
Probably in a few days. I know right now it's being kind of cleaned up, the audio I just told Andy, who's kind of the video guy behind the scenes, like, hey, make us look good, make it sound good. So,
What's it about, Joe?
it's about sidechains, right? We've had, let's say, we teased this idea of Ergo Meta a long time ago, and kind of the backstory was Alex went on vacation finally a while ago. It's like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And, I reached out and said, hey, buddy, how's, the vacation going? He's like, oh, I came up with a new sidechain framework. What are you doing? I told, I told you to unplug. And he's like, no, it's on paper. So, then we kind of got distracted by other things, right? DEXI development and different EIPs that needed to be pushed and network upgrades. And so that's kind of been on the back burner. But it's always kind of been a long-term idea, motivation for, how to kind of scale everything that we've built, right? So I think it will be a good video for people in the Ergo community to say, okay, well, if we're looking at an extended time frame, 5 years, 10 years, what's our goals? What are our roadmaps? What would we like to create? So yeah, hopefully people can tune in and enjoy that.
Yeah, I tried to ping him a little bit about the sidechains on the dev update last week, but it's going to be interesting to hear your dual take there on that. You were talking a little bit about potentially sidechains that could be running off different even algorithms, right? Like ASIC miners, perhaps.
Yeah. If you look at the contractual layer, let's call it Sigma or Ergo tree, right? It basically, if you look at the stack of a blockchain, there are different layers. Okay. And one really unique thing that we have going for, let's say the Sigma layer or Ergo tree layer, depends on, what you want to call it, is that, not only is it a very powerful contractual language, we have a ton of open source infrastructure because that's always been kind of the focus of our ecosystem, right? And so to some degree, you could look at that layer and all of the contractual capacities of that layer as a type of software suite, right? It's like, essentially a type of OS with applications that are portable. That's powerful, right? And so it's like, okay, if we want to try to build the developer environment, if we want to try to build the mind share, and if we want to essentially create network effects, right? We should consider taking that Sigma layer and making it portable. And the cool thing is you start plugging things into Ergo, right? As one network, we have the ability to create a constellation of Sigma chains or a forest of Ergo trees, networks, or whatever you want to call it. That's powerful, especially if you look at, let's say, the cross-chaining, the cross-chaining methods that are, currently used, whether it's by Cosmos, Polkadot. We can do better, and we can build it on a proof of work base. And, that's powerful. So long term, I would love to see kind of the Sigma layer become a common contractual standard for proof of work. That's why you build open source software, right? Because you can plug it in multiple environments, and it's hard to kill. It's resilient, right? So, long term, that's the direction I would like to, head. And I know that, like with Nautilus, with the Google manifest requirements, where, they kind of hit the team with, like, if you want to stay on Chrome, we're going to have
That's
major changes. That's been like a 5-month, let's say, distraction. But one of the benefits of, let's say the opportunity of that obstacle is that, it's moved the structure of Nautilus around to where we're, kind of added this capability to easily add new chain support. And so, not only with Rosen, but potentially with this idea of, the Sigma constellation, we're like positioning to where, we can run multiple blockchains in a common interface. but powerful. So yeah, it's been busy.
Nothing big, you know. No, it'll be great. When I first heard that Captain was going to follow the follow Rosen at least with Nautilus, that was news to me. Very exciting. Even if it scopes beyond Nautilus, beyond Rosen Bridge, that'll be great. But having Nautilus as my main wallet in my browser for any chain that Rosen crosses to is a huge, huge win. I think a necessity, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I was really excited to be in the Sigmanaut chat the other day, and people were talking about, common UX standards across applications.
Yep.
That's something that if I had the bandwidth, I would really love to chase that down, but I tend to, I don't know, carry a lot of water side that don't have the free time or energy.
A lot of holes to fill and not enough water by individual people, that's for sure. That's why we're trying for these collectives, that's for sure. What's up? Sorry, what's new with Rosen, Joe? Anything beyond the audit? You're just waiting on the audit? The Bitcoin connector's been tested, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's ongoing. We had scoped out like the specifications for the Bitcoin bridge. That's always a matter of build, test, break, build, test, break, build, test, break, improve. We pushed this watcher upgrade, which is awesome. We've been kind of watching the existing watcher set scale.
You've had no issues with extending the watcher set beyond 77 per chain?
No, I mean, on an individual level, there's always some friction when it comes to,
of course,
upgrades. And so I can't say that there's been no struggles out there, but
I meant programmatically on your back, on the code end.
It's been working as intended. There's I guess somebody out there that's trying to scam watchers, and the old help support channel. Everybody, please, stay away from that. If you do need help, reach out on public channels and stay in public channels. Don't go into this, DM stuff. It's just sketchy. Sadly, there's a lot of people out there that want to part you with your money. That just is what it is. And it always kind of breaks my heart a little bit when you see somebody say, hey, I just lost a lot of money because I was trying to, learn or, do something right. And somebody came and took advantage of me. Right.
Those
but that is
tough.
kind of nature. Nature. It's not just an on-chain problem.
And it's crazy too, because you look at the whole situation of what happened recently, and you notice, to anybody looking from the outside, you're like, holy red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. But it's interesting. Once an initial assumption is made about what is happening, then all those red flags don't seem like red flags. So you're just holding onto that assumption that, oh yeah, this is support. Then nothing else matters after that.
No, it's true. When someone develops like the assumption someone's there to save them or help them, it's dangerous.
Yep.
That's just I don't know, human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
So everybody out there, stay safe. It looks like Padilla is doing, pretty good in terms of their.
Padilla just added Walrus DAO, I believe, and Good Things DAO a little while ago. So I'm in works to extract the voters or the raffle supporters for Good Things DAO for those the Kushti raffles. And they'll be getting airdropped a Good Things DAO token. And in the token, I actually wrote instructions on how to connect to Padilla and what the process was about needing B Padilla rather than having to explain 50 times. So if you just read the tokens, those people who contributed, you'll get your instructions. But yeah, Walrus DAO as well. And we've been using it quite a bit for Sigmanauts. There was a vote last week or the week before to dump 500 ergs into the actual treasury inside of Padilla so that people could just make direct votes off that and the money would go directly to where they wanted to. Because currently we have our base treasury that's a multi-sig wallet. So any vote that happens in Padilla, we then have to round up the multi-sig people and do a transaction and send it out from there. So there's no autonomy there as far as that goes. So so we're poking our toes in the water about putting funds into Padilla, and so far so good. It's an absolutely amazing tool. And on top of that too, in the spirit of open source and open source competition, Kras was talking about how he could potentially, with some dev work, not him specifically, but other people, could, position the DAO that they're building for duck pools to be more of a generic DAO on top of that as well. So that would be really cool as well. I don't think you can have too many DAOs in this space, that's for sure. So that could serve a different purpose or the same purpose and have some competition, which I think is super, super awesome. Yeah, it's good. Crass, we've been getting Crass into the Sig chat more often now when we're chatting about stuff. So it's really good to have his point of view popping out there with such an experienced developer.
Yeah, and I guess one question we're going to run into is MEC integration, right?
I thought we were. Oh, you're gonna front run that question, Joe?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, it's great to see them using Fleet SDK.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
They're actually using our Ergo infrastructure, which is nice.
Yep, they asked the Fleet team to for, I forget what it was. There was some sort of transaction thing that they needed that wasn't quite baked into Fleet yet. So the Fleet team said, "Hey, give us to the end of the weekend and we'll bake it in." And they did, and they sent like the test build while they're finalizing the build, and they're working away at it. So I think that's a huge announcement, Joe. That this is the first CEX essentially that's using this simple tooling
Ergo
that's
native.
been built. Yeah, absolutely.
Ergo native software. And I would also say like the Minotaur update's pretty big. Those of you that aren't familiar, that's kind of I don't know, less marketing around that wallet, but the multi-sig capabilities that are coming, cold signing, etc. It's pretty powerful build. So
yeah, I'd suggest everybody out there right now download Minotaur with your life partner and put all your bank funds into a multi-sig wallet. So every time you and your wife or husband want to spend some money, you have to do a 2 of 2 multi-sig on your bank account. But yeah, the interface change alone is absolutely fantastic. When you do a multi-sig transaction, it tells you the commitments, who signed the signatures as well, and even if it quits out, it doesn't matter. It's saved. It's like it's not even version 2.0. It feels like they went from version 1 to version 5, Joe. It's like it's such a huge step between the two versions that they've been doing. But yeah, multi-sig, fantastic wallet for Minotaur, and they're talking about. Eventually, right? They're the iOS. They're working on iOS store integration.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I guess if we continue, what we kind of touched on earlier, where you get wallets with DApp connector or DApp integration. We kind of need to, in my opinion anyway, we need to come around some type of standard to where we can start pulling dApps into wallets. That way, the UX becomes easier for, let's say, new users. And I know that's kind of it's already kind of the trend outside of Ergo. Where
the most look at Trust Wallet, Joe, right? It's got look at Trust Wallet. It's got swaps built in. It's got purchasing. Yeah. It's got all that kind of crap built into it. So it'd be awesome. And you have some of that, like in Minotaur desktop. You can interact with the Sig USD bank. Same with Terminus wallet, those kind of things. But yeah,
it's weird. It's weird. Sometimes it's like that middleware really makes a difference.
Yeah. But I can imagine how awesome it'd be to Spectrum swap inside Minotaur wallet or Terminus. That'd be pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
Or Crooks Finance swap. I shouldn't just say Spectrum. We have two official dexes essentially on Ergo now, right?
I believe so.
Have you used Crooks Finance swap?
I've looked at it. I've talked to HQ and kind of got an idea, just because I was curious, what's happening over here. I think that that's why code is open, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we had somebody, the person running the Bober token that released a little while ago asked us if we could give away 45 Bober tokens to the best question in chat, and they've requested that you pick the best question so far, Joe. So if you think it's time to go to questions, we can.
Yeah, we can go to questions. I mean,
pick what you think the best question is.
I'd be happy to pick a winner, but I don't know anything about payment on the back end. But I'll be the judge.
Take care of that.
All right. Sure.
All right, hit it, Joe. You got a few questions there already. Why don't we give him time? Why don't we give him a little bit more time to ask a few more questions now that they know they can get some bober?
All right, let's see.
All right.
We got a question from Ursa Minor 2010. Joe, do you think that Rosen Bridge is more of a tool infrastructure or as a standalone DApp? Could it be integrated into wallets or into other dApps? Definitely the second. In terms of your second question, it could be integrated, and I think it should be. Now, the question is what is needed in order to do that? We need to have a common SDK. That's actually something that, we've had discussion about, even within the last 2 weeks and are actively pursuing, right? Rosen Bridges is infrastructure. Now, long term, I hope that as we grow into multiple environments, and Rosen itself becomes more adopted, it does become kind of a standard that can be integrated into wallets, hopefully without, even us needing to necessarily be a part of that. Now, sometimes you run into a sticky situation with that, and that is where, you do potentially get, I don't know, let's just say opportunists that could say, okay, well, I've integrated Rosen into this and, use Rosen and you send funds into a black hole. So it's something that people always have to be careful with.
Mhm.
That's sometimes the downside to that path, and it's incredibly hard to prevent. And we go back to like the support shit. It's
Yeah, well,
kinda
how do you form? So from what I understand from Mr. Stahlfelger, is that the Mosaic framework and the terminus essentially looks for. There's nothing they have to do server side, right? Or there's nothing Mr. Stahlfelger has to do. So anybody could essentially add
Yeah.
a DApp. So how do we go about creating that, layer of? Not everybody can verify. They have to trust sometimes. So
Yeah, that's part of the difficulty here is that like at least if you're talking about a single mobile wallet, you're building into the framework of that wallet, right? And so you're connecting to that type of infrastructure. When you have some type of like third party that's like, oh, I'm going to support Rosen, we're not going to be able to check everybody's back end and make sure that it's pointed to, the proper endpoint from the UX. Like, I don't know how to fix that problem.
yeah.
That's something that, MHS and I have, really tried to talk about and be like, well, it's one thing where it's like you can, I don't know, build a moat around things and ensure that they operate, within like your own zone of control and it's not so open. Then there's a safety element to that perhaps, but then it also prevents, your framework from scaling across infrastructure. Yep. It creates additional friction and babysitting and, fun stuff that I don't always have the bandwidth for. So, as infrastructure, yeah, I think there's a lot of potential growth there for Rosen because when you run into bridges, nobody talks about the design. Nobody talks about this design. Nobody talks about like what's happening on the back end. Like, oh, you're moving from the L1 to the L2. You're moving, across chain. That's all great and good, but how?
Yeah, funny thing is I just looked up after I sent you that crazy staking percentage open for wormhole on Solana. I looked up a couple Google searches on, what's the back end look like? How's it look? It took me like 5, 6, 7 pages before I finally found a diagram that kind of explained how it worked in very high level terms. But
it's crazy to me because in a way, all you're talking about is a type of messaging system to create a connection between two ledgers, right? So in essence, it's not really a blockchain, but it's kind of like I don't know, some kind of cross-chain solution for keeping units of account in parallel. And, it's like imagine if there's a blockchain and, you just have trouble finding out how does it work? and you have to, dig through things. That's kind of the state of the space, in my opinion, where it's dangerous, and there's a lot of trade-offs that are often, not so, I don't know, not so, let's say, known until there's a problem, and that's not a good way to build public infrastructure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what Rosen did that was amazing, and I think very hard to do, that other people fall victim to, is they get wrapped up in the success of scaling. So their idea is, let's build something and get it huge and get a ton of users and get them on it. Whereas Rosen took the other approach, and I think it's got to take a lot of a tough constitution to be able to fight that kind of desire to scale out and get huge. Where you guys just focused on, let's build something absolutely sound tight, secure, with assumptions and out there that everybody knows.
That's very easy, QX, because I want to put my money on it. That's very easy.
Okay, good point. But you get the idea. I think people get drunk in the idea of, expanding and being huge and going into that first. And that's their main focus. Let's get big. Let's get huge. Whereas
faster.
Yeah, and then they burn out fast. And then you have freaking holes and hacks and all that crap. So I applaud you guys at least for sticking to those principles and building something absolutely amazing and calling it Rosen Light for the first couple months, and then hopefully we'll get Rosen, Virgin, and maybe Rosen Extra Virgin. We'll get full on Rosen eventually.
Yeah, well, it's always going to be a work in progress. But I think, starting from a solid foundation is the most important thing when you're building something.
Yeah.
All right, next question. QX, can you talk about the Sigma lock proposal on Padilla? Can you please discuss the importance of voting and quorum thresholds?
Yeah, so a little while ago in chat, a couple users at once actually came on and they said, how do I lock up my ergs personally? And people are like, oh, I'll just use a ledger, that kind of thing. And they're like, no, I want it in a smart contract and I don't want to be able to touch it. And they're like, oh, use HODLBox. And they're like, well, I want a specific kind of parameter around it. And so I came up with a quick idea of how to loan yourself something on Sigmafy and then burn the keys. That's kind of clunky, very clunky actually. So my thought was, how do we do this, and what utility can it bring besides the fact, besides just individual users wanting to lock up their tokens away from themselves to save themselves from themselves. And so I came up with a Sigma lock idea, which essentially is interface where you put ergs or tokens in and you choose the amount of time it's locked for, and you get an NFT, and that NFT can then be put in a ledger. It can be given to a child. It can be given to somebody else. And that NFT is what unlocks the lock, not your address, just in case, let's say the tricky thing, what if your address is you suspect your address is compromised and you have all these DApps that you're connected to, you're going to be a little shaky, waiting for that time to unlock to do it. So that NFT kind of serves that purpose where you can transfer it to a clean wallet if you like to, or something like that. So essentially Sigma lock is exactly that. It's a time, a set time that you lock it for. There are some parameters that you can hopefully set as well. One being that you can bind it to an address as well. So let's take life insurance, for example. If I want to do life insurance for my children and I put, 5,000 ergs into a contract for 20 years, I'll give that NFT to my kids. They can't open it with the NFT for 20 years, but my address has power to move it whenever I want to, if I want to change it or modify it or that kind of thing. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is, let's say you're building a project and you're hiring a third-party dev that's out of the ecosystem, and you just know they're going to dump all your project tokens as soon as you pay them. You could pay them in this kind of time lock NFT. So you lock up the thing, you do a 6-month lock, you do a 1-year lock, you get 2 NFTs, you give them both NFTs, and they cash out when they want to cash out after the time lock. There's, let's see, there's also things like token launches. You can go ahead and mint a ton of these NFTs that say are worth 10 of your tokens, and then you can put them in a smart contract, and people can send some ergs to the smart contracts, and they'll get a token, an NFT token that's worth 10 of your tokens, and they can't do anything with it for 6 months or 10 months or whatever whatever that lock is. So that lets you do these kind of grassroots token launches without the use of a IDO platform or anything like that. There's a couple other examples I have of how that'll work, but I think the possibilities are quite endless what you can do when you give somebody control of a token that they can cash in for another token, but there's a time lock on it essentially. So that's that. We put it up on Padilla. There's 4 yes votes for it so far. And to going into that as well, there's the default on Padilla right now for our DAO, I think, is 10% quorum. So I think that's like 2 votes, I think, and something can pass if it's yes. And it has to be 60% yeses, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. So those are actually sliders in Padilla. So the funny thing is, now that there's actually money inside our treasury in Padilla, you kind of have to pay attention to that, because somebody could make a vote that says, let's send 500 ergs that we just got to Joe's wallet, and they vote yes on it, and somebody else votes yes. Maybe they're not paying attention, and that's it. Nobody else is paying attention. The funds go to that person. So those kind of thresholds are super, super important to know. And on Padilla, anybody can see them. Once you're in the DAO and you've staked your DAO token, you can go into the financials of it or the config of the DAO, and you can see those sliders and try to configure them to the DAO's liking. But yeah, always pay attention to that now that money's involved. But I think that's good. Putting money into the treasury, people are like, oh shit, we kind of have to take this seriously now and watch what's going out. So yeah.
All right. Next question is from Daniel Papp. Why did you choose the Dogecoin for Rosen Bridge and not some other technically advanced coin like BTC ETH? Well, we're integrating BTC first. No, there's a couple of good questions in there. Like, we have support from Hosky and Comet on Rosen Bridge, and some people have asked, hey, why did you support like dog coins? Because they helped us in testnet, right? We hit a point where we had run testnet with Rosen, and we actually were testing on mainnet, right? So
Classic.
Actual funds at risk, right? We're no longer talking about testnet tokens. And so we were like, okay, well, if there's a problem, we need to make sure that we minimize the value or loss of kind of the testing on mainnet. So we reached out, and Hosky and Comet were like, hey, our tokens are mostly worthless. You can use them in small amounts. And if anything blows up, then, nobody's going bankrupt, right? So we already had them integrated into the Rosen infrastructure because they were part of the testing process. Now, I'm gonna talk about Dogecoin for a minute. Dogecoin is a popular meme coin, and it's a proper coin, right? And what does that mean? It means in order to create Doge, you have to mine it. It's a Bitcoin fork. Now, that is a very different thing than having a meme token, right? A meme token, how difficult is it to create it? It depends on the chain, in Ergo, the
10
ability.
seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds and not even $1, and you can create 100 trillion dog coins of whatever breed or is your fancy. So Doge was like the original meme coin, but in a way you had to modify the emissions of Bitcoin. You had to kind of tinker around with some of the deeper parameters of the Bitcoin network, and it is its own proof of work chain at this point. I think it's set up to where if you mine Litecoin or something, you also will get some Doge, just because Litecoin as well as Bitcoin fork, and so you have collateral that's required to create a proof of work coin, and that's hardware and energy, right? You have to burn energy, you have to have hardware in order to create a proof of work coin. So the net framework that I really like about proof of work is that in order to create something, you have to have this input or collateral continuously, right? Versus if you look at whether it's a token or I'd say some other like proof of stake stuff. The actual like energy and collateral required to create further emissions is based on the value of itself, not some external collateral source, right? And that creates a certain instability in mining. Mining is hard, right? If you look at earning proof of like stake rewards, you don't do anything. You pretty much armchair it. And, the energy or collateral that is required is just based on what you already had. And I think that in terms of value creation, having that continuous collateral or input required to create an output is a better system long term. So Dogecoin itself is backed by energy. And so then the question is, okay, well, if you can take a digital asset that's backed by continuous energy input, and then you can build financial products kind of on top of that. Like, let's say you, just as a random example, Dexy is on its way to mainnet, and it's been on testnet for a while. We've been testing it. You could always have Doge Dexy, right? And then it could, in theory, you could create the same framework, and it would be backed by the energy input of kind of, let's say, Dogecoin on another blockchain, right? So proof of work coins, I think, are better collateral for that reason in terms of DeFi. And it's true that, it's lost on most people now, which is kind of crazy. Like the difference between a coin and a token and the energy that's created in terms of value. Like people don't necessarily look at the assumptions around these things as money. They've kind of become like a social gambling mechanism, which is entertaining to watch sometimes. Sometimes it's really sad to watch. I guess it depends where you're looking. But in a way, I try to, I don't know, look at kind of like the base assumption of these things is like money or stores of value, transfers of value. And Doge is interesting, and it's, more or less wildly popular, probably, partially just due to like marketing and Elon Musk and other, random factors. But at the end of the day, it is, people are burning energy to create it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a little harder to withdraw from something like that when you're putting energy into the system as opposed to just, it's just a token on another chain kind of thing. So it's a huge difference.
And, like there's a different long-term assumption too. Like if I buy a Doge miner, right, I'm going to want an ROI on that.
Yep.
I have a certain external like investment collateral that has kind of anchored me into that ecosystem versus if I buy a meme token, I can drop that like a bad habit in a second.
Yep. Yeah. Joe, how does Rosen deal with, sorry, kind of on topic, off topic question. How does Rosen deal with bridging a chain that has an inflating supply, an unlimited supply that's being mined?
Well, we're going to have to, Rosen at this point is we create like a sub account where, we have minted token that then we manage. And in order to release from that vault, it requires guard consensus. So I would assume the best thing to do would be to overestimate the, let's say, number of tokens, right? Because it's Ergo is like a one-shot mint.
Yeah,
which has its pros and cons, I guess. But
so you'd have to overshoot it for quite a bit, considering how long you think Doge is going to last for, how long it's going to be around.
Yeah. And one other interesting question is it's not exactly pertinent to Doge is because it has no smart contract standard. But when you get into something like ETH, it's there's theoretically no limit, right? Or some smart contract platforms, their emissions are bound by monetary policy rather than some emission cap. So that needs to be an assumption that we have to solve the riddle for in multiple ecosystems.
Interesting. I guess if in worst case scenario, you could always create some sort of swap portal. I mean,
you could. Like there's theoretical patches that are all messy.
Yeah.
Well, that's license.
Yeah, yeah, damn. You're bringing more
Um,
headaches on, Joe, but it's
yeah,
great.
thanks for that question. I needed it. uh, see another question from Marissa Minor. I'm just going down the list here.
Yep, yep.
So, rather than a hackathon, does it make sense to specify goals, scopes, methods, and then judge vet the code created by the contestant? It's hackathons tend to be more open. I
Yeah.
sometimes that there's use for like contests. Sometimes if you get like bounties, I think that might be where you have a little bit more of a specific goal, scope, method, etc. That might be more like a bounty. Sometimes you could have like an open bounty contest. I guess it's like names, labels, and flexibility of what you're willing to accept.
Yeah, we talked about this in the SIGs a little bit, about, what does a hackathon mean? And no matter how hard you try to theme a hackathon in Ergo, it tends to have unrelated entries apart from the theme. So there were talks about, possibly maybe creating some sort of 30-day challenge where you group together devs and you offer some sort of payout depending on if final code is workable or that kind of thing. But it's definitely something we pass around to try to figure out. Because yeah, you wonder how beneficial are these hackathons? It definitely gets devs a paycheck as far as that goes, and it definitely gets something built. Could there be a better use of what is it, 15, 16,000 SIG USD usually that's put out with the hackathons, Joe? Something like that? 9,000
I
for
don't know.
first place or
I
something?
think if we look at our net conversion rate in terms of idea to then application, we're killing it.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's so many good things that came out of hackathons, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree with you, Joe. I think bounties are a good way to get things done that are needed. So if we need UI UX improvements, SIGs can put out a bounty and say we need a better UI for Terminus Wallet. Somebody make it. Here's 10,000 erg or something like that. So I think that's a really good quick injection of a fix. And then we
All
should
right.
advertise the shit out of it to other chains in the internet, not just internally to Ergo.
I agree. Dear friends, when is it planned to open trading Ergo on MEXC? It depends on them. We're not the
Yeah.
captain at this point. It depends on their unit tests and when their infrastructure is sound. And, it's hard to say. One thing that you have to keep in mind is they're building infrastructure from scratch versus adding native tokens, which exchanges usually charge exorbitant amounts for native tokens when the actual lift is basically nothing.
Yeah.
Next, HQ, Joe, how big is your bobber bag? That'd be my contestant question for you. 0, unless I have some in my tip bot, in which case I'm dumping it directly after this. So if I have some in my tip bot and you're in baseless, you might get a lottery.
I try to make sure that anything I tweet about on the main Ergo account I don't hold, just because it feels pretty damn dirty. So
Yeah.
I'm also a 0 holder of any Bober, so don't send me any either, because I'll send it to Joe. I'll send it to Joe, and then Joe can tip it up.
Somebody asked me a question about greasy sex one time on this, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna dump it after. And
You did. You made somebody a greasy whale, didn't you? Was it Maverick or somebody? I forget who you did.
I don't know how much like the value of the tip was. They told me after, and they were like,
It
"What
was like
did you do?"
a couple million greasy sex. Yeah, that was a funny moment, Joe.
Yeah. So know your assumptions. Please don't. Please don't.
Yeah.
Better to tip the community.
Yeah, it was Maverick. I thought it was Maverick. Maverick got the greasy sex, he says. Super funny. But that was great. That made Maverick participate in the greasy sex mission, Joe. So you really bootstrapped that for one of the users.
It was my plan all along.
Yeah, I figured.
With more tokens on Rosen Bridge. As I said, right now we're going through an audit. When you're doing that type of I don't know, update, upgrade. Sometimes the best thing to do is to have a certain order of operations for security purposes. And so, I want to make sure that, the layer underneath it is solid before we start building on top of it. Everybody's impatient, but the reality is you need to make sure your foundation is solid before you start building the roof.
Come on, you can build a foundation after the fact, Joe, can't you?
Yeah. Well, it's, a lot more time, energy, headache. So we just follow process, right? and that's not always like sexy, but it's just how things should be built if they're going to be built the right way and minimize future risks. So
Yeah,
just patient.
one thing we're trying to do in the back, at least I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to currently I'll be honest about this. Currently the guard set, we're essentially chosen, right? They don't have any stake. They don't have any stake in the game at the moment. The way that the Rosen Bridge has done it is they've offered guardship to
Applications.
select applications, Sigmanauts, and in return, since there's no collateral, the idea is that any profits from this going forward will be put into a collateralized pot, and once a threshold is met, then that's considered your collateral. So it's kind of like a loan on collateral until it's built up.
Yep.
So one of the issues that exists with that I found is that since some of the projects or all the projects don't really have a stake in the game at this point, they haven't really realized of what the profits are and what's coming out. The motivation is a little hard, so it's sometimes difficult to get everybody on the same page and get them moving. Although we did kick ass with the big upgrade that allowed the Watcher update, that was really impressive. But things like multi-sigs, where we're testing out the cold wallets, we're trying to get them motivated. So if any of you guards are watching, please read my message that I put in chat a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so it's great. I think it's just going to take a little bit to get in the swing, at least for the guards, to realize what their holding is as far as that goes and the importance of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and part of the assumption that I put on my side is I did not support their projects in Rosen. If you notice. I did that on purpose, right? And if you look at the different applications that are kind of represented as Rosen guards, right now Rosen does not support them, even though they're guard. So then what is that going to require? It's going to require them to put up collateral through Rosen if they want to use Rosen for their project. So then naturally it will address that gap. And it's pretty cool to think that after this next upgrade, you could have projects on Ergo that have the potential to have access to the liquidity of Uniswap. That's bigger than most centralized exchanges in terms of like the net user base liquidity. That's a big driver for potential growth if people take advantage of it.
Yep, 100%.
Let's see, next question. Please tell us about the advantages. What advantages does Ergo have compared to the Casa project? Well, I can run the full history of the system, and I can actually do something with it.
That's a kind burn, Joe. Kind burn.
Well, I mean, that's not a negative. That's kind of built into their assumptions is that.
Yeah, I mean, they made a choice that speed and that kind of thing was more important than ledger history, and then now they're chasing around people that may have freaking zipped up backups of it to try to restore that kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting design in terms of the network layer and speed. It's just very different design parameter in terms of programmability. It's a DAG. It's not a blockchain. It's a different network, like top to bottom.
do you see Rosen forking, or not forking, but bridging to, almost anything you can get your fingers on?
Long term, what I would like to see is we create packages to where teams can submit a lot of the infrastructure and work that we needed to add Rosen, right? Like, I don't know, if I think about it long term, right? And I'm saying, okay, we're 5 years in the future, we've successfully, integrated into a lot of the systems that we want to. If there was a project that's kind of out in the, let's say, I don't know, back 40 of the crypto space. But, in a way, it could have been like Ergo when it starts, right? There's smart people and some really good ideas. I would love to give them a path to leverage that to, market, let's say, access markets and, kind of overcome some of the same friction that we ran into. So
yeah, I think people understand the implications of that. I mean, you start up your own chain, you have some smart devs, they'll get there. I realize that, and then you connect to Rosen in the future, you're going to have it's, the road that leads everywhere, essentially, with Rosen. It's going to be absolutely game changing. Fantastic. And I was thinking earlier too, with Rosen integration and wallets, Joe, let's say you have Rosen and Spectrum integrated in wallets. Somebody could create some sort of pathway where you swap, use a wallet as essentially a cross-chain DEX. So it does it in the background. It'll swap over to the other chain and then transfer it through Spectrum contracts. And then in your wallet, you actually have ADA or you have Ethereum. So you just moved from Ergo to ADA using Rosen and Spectrum in one kind of swap. But I imagine you also have talked about providing kind of DEX access inside Rosen, perhaps in the future. Is that
Yeah,
something?
there's a lot of potential things that could like theoretically be built on top of Rosen.
Yeah.
That's not the focus right now, but certainly it's always good to have crazy ideas and then go and fight about them.
Yeah, or post them in chat and have everybody tell you why it's a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have a good idea. No, you don't.
Yeah.
That's kind of the friction of how things are born, right?
Most of the time it's Glasgow putting a link in and saying, yeah, we tried this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Classic.
Anyway, Augustus Kent says, why is the contractual layer on Ergo called Sigma? Because we use Sigma protocols. Simple.
And where'd Sigma protocols come from? Maybe it's a follow-up question. Where'd the name Sigma protocols come from?
No, they're different types of zero knowledge proofs. Right now we're running two. As we get into the sidechain aspect, there's the potential to experiment, add support for bulletproofs and other types of Sigma protocols as well. So that's something that I think that as Ergo and Sigma become hopefully a contractual standard, then we can start having like these type of testnet environments or playgrounds, new chains or test chains where we can actually build out a larger suite of Sigma protocols, which would be pretty damn cool. But it's one of those things where like you can look at threshold signatures. They're very powerful. They like threshold signatures on an application level is super powerful because it gives you like this, clear assumption around spending. And, especially as we move towards like, you could say Coinbase is using they're moving towards custodial solutions, right? As they have these larger funds that are using them as like the, custodial actor for their products. What are they using? Threshold signatures, right? So it's a powerful base primitive to build things on top of for security. That hasn't been chased or realized at all, but I think long term it's going to be more interesting. Let's see.
Looks like Yasha Black. Looks like Yasha's awake and spicy. We can hit that later.
Oh, I'm not down far enough yet.
No, you're not down far enough.
Are there plans to work on marketing component to promote the Ergo project? Yeah, there's always a lot of plans. I would recommend if you want to be a part of that, join the Sigmanauts.
Yep, that's always front and foremost kind of in our minds of how we can do that better. I think I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, about how there's an initiative to have the SIGs offer projects kind of manpower or woman power, people power, for helping post to their own accounts, for Twitter, having, hosting spaces for them, doing all that kind of work that, let's be honest, devs are not always great at that kind of thing. And a lot of Ergo projects are basically devs. So if we can harness that from the SIGs and provide that to projects, I think that'd be at least a step in the right direction. And I would say if you, maybe I don't always say it, but the idea is that even if you can mostly do something, it may not be, you may get into chat and say, oh, we're doing this and this and this. And then somebody comes in and says, oh, well, don't do that. That's, the pros are doing this and the pros are doing this. And, you're like, well, we have the capacity to do this right now. And we're going to take this step to do this because it's going to bring benefit to the ecosystem and the project. And then you build off on top of that. It's just all about taking these steps. You don't always have to make that jump from zero marketing to professional level. We're talking about Solana marketing and that kind of crap. We take steps up there, and as you go, people recognize the mistakes you've made and they go off that. There's nothing more motivating than looking at something from the outside and saying, oh, you're doing it wrong. Let me help you out and let me show you how to do it right, or how I think we should do it. So that's all part of the building process and learning process that I think is important. So when you get beat down in chat about something not being a good idea or not good enough or not how everybody else is doing it, then just think of that. We're taking steps here, guys. We're not jumping over canyons right in the first bout.
All right. How was your East Denver experience? I always enjoy East Denver. I've been multiple times. I'd say probably, I don't know. I went to a talk from Stacks, like a Bitcoin L2. I found it interesting. Not that, I mean, Bitcoin L2s are particularly new, but just listening to what they were talking about. I had a good time with the, let's say, Hummingbird bot team. Met up with them at one of the meetups and talked about, the idea of getting the support for Ergo and the open source base. Spent some time with Optum, the team from Cardano, talk about, what they're doing with DeFi. Spent some time, talking with different mining infrastructure providers, mining hardware providers. And yeah, talk to a couple of different East projects, learn, what they're doing, why they're doing it. I don't know. Sometimes I like to just pretend I don't know what's happening and be like, oh, cool. What are you guys doing? Zero knowledge. Cool. I'm like, well, what path are you going and why? And just ask questions, try to learn, try not to, I don't know, just kind of be neutral, absorb information, come up with my own thoughts. Generally, I think like, in crypto, there's a tendency for there to be like these, I don't know, let's call them sex machines. They're like a common trend that is super complicated, and people are currently in like a race to market, and the complexity of what's happening is probably going to be overlooked and buried for the and that intent of getting there first, or getting to where you need to be when market conditions are still good, and then you look at the underlying complexity of the system or what they're trying to do, and you're like, oof, this is going to blow up. So every once in a while, first it was like, a Jillian TPS was he's the Denver like a common marketing thing, and then interoperability and cross chaining, and a lot of that blew up because
Decentralization seems to be thrown a lot around by anybody. It's like
yeah,
put that label on.
now it's like credible neutrality. Sad, but there's a lot of complexities in those systems that it's like, I don't know, AI is the current one where it's like the complexity there is huge, and then you have all of these things that are in a horse race, and they're trying to market and deliver something way faster than probably the underlying complexity problem of like what they're trying to do is. And so then, who will deliver what and who will just implode or burn out, I don't know. But I like to go there and watch and look for those common themes and say, okay, well, who's got a interesting mindset long term, and who's, more in the race? Because that type of race condition is just dangerous to try to build like technology on top of.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, let's make a quick announcement. There is what's it called? DX Pool has quite a bit of hash.
Yeah,
51% or not. Yeah.
Morning. God damn it.
Fucking.
Do you know how many times I've had to do the dance like, miners, please decentralize your hash rate. It's why you have a security subsidy. And yeah, so I don't know. I think long term, it's potentially, something that we need to offer better incentives for. Better technology like Lethos would help with that. But most of the times hash rate will centralize like that when profitability isn't that great, because then people hit shares more often and they feel, better in the short term. And then you got to say, well, if you have any inclination to stick around, decentralize the hash rate. Net, your payout represents your share of the network security anyway, so it kind of averages out, and you're actually offering security to the network instead of degrading the security of the network, which is your goddamn job.
Ursa just asked if you're going to join the Sigmanauts mining pool, Joe.
Yeah, I probably will.
You got to fire up that thing. Is it still down by your couch there, or is that the thing sold?
No, I sent. It's kind of in decommission. I got to replace a couple parts because that thing's old, to be honest.
If you
I
need a
don't have
card, just
time.
let me know. I've got a Radeon 7 still kicking around that I haven't put in my
No,
rig,
no, no.
so.
I've got plenty of cards around.
Okay, all right, all right.
That's not a problem at all. It's just the time and the tinkering.
But yeah, for anybody out there, join the SIGs guys. We'll probably jump into the Erg mining and try to hunt down DX people. Maybe put a announcement on Twitter to decentralize your hash. But in the meantime, SIGs pool's been up. We went through a spree this week. I think we have like 8 blocks this week, so pretty good. We're running at 15 gigahash. But the more the merrier. Come on in. We just reduced our payout factor to 0.5, so it should be closer to kind of what PPN is, even though we're running PPLNS. So yeah, hop on. It's fun. You got Mark the Shark in there, who's doing an amazing job building UIs for it. You have a couple other people. Rustin built his own very simple UI, and somebody else is building their own UI. So it's just, it's fun to be part of something that you can make change and see change and steer it in the direction you want to, or you think is best, as opposed to going to one of these big pools where, shit, we find a block, and even though we find one almost every day, we still like write in jail, hell yeah, we found a block kind of thing. So we're still kind of that that kind of atmosphere where it's in a big,
Good.
the big pools, like, oh, well, yeah, we found a block an hour ago. Who gives a fuck? That kind of thing.
All right. Let's see question marks. I don't see any more. You said you wanted to go through Yasha. He's got one. Let's see. We
I
don't
don't know if
need
it's a question or more of a comment, but
Yeah, so we don't need Ergo decks anymore when we can bridge assets to EVM and launch them on Uniswap. That's a dumb assumption. Well, I mean, it is. That's like saying if you have one exchange listing, why would you have another, right?
Yeah.
You want to have access to markets across, let's say, as many as you can access. That way you distribute your asset. Why do we need Ergo tokens?
Call them tokens, Joe. He called them tokens. Oh, maybe he means like in general.
No, I think he does mean like native tokens.
Native tokens. Okay.
No, but that's a good question. Why do we need Ergo native tokens? Why don't you just launch them on EVM? Well, I think
you have to reward miners to secure the goddamn network.
Well, he didn't say coins. He didn't say coins. He said tokens. That's a good question always. Why is there a token, right? What does the token represent? What does it get? Why is it needed, right? I think that's a solid question that sometimes in the crypto space is not always a very clear assumption, other than it's something to speculate with, which I don't know. I guess that's a use case, right? I think that if you're tied to a particular network in terms of your infrastructure, it makes sense to have a token that represents that network, right? So like Rosen, works with smart contracts on Ergo. It requires the functionality of Ergo. We need Ergo to be secure and successful in order for Rosen to work. So we would build on top of Ergo. Now, if we can take that asset and we can distribute it across markets, but the function of that is to ultimately create a larger user base, and then as the network itself scales and you have more people that potentially use Rosen, it creates more smart contract activity on Ergo, which is good for Ergo and Ergo miners and Ergo security, and that's why we built on Ergo. But if you're talking about like Pepe, there's a million Pepe tokens and Solana and Ethereum and Cardano and Ergo, and what is the point of them on each particular chain? I don't know. I guess transactions pay miners, so that's a net positive in the end. But in terms of like, I don't know, sometimes in crypto, I guess I came from an era where I had to ask myself the question a lot: why is the token needed here?
Right. Could Rosen Bridge exist without the Rosen token? Could you find some way to leverage Erg? We
thought about it. We thought about it. And the difficulty with that that we kind of ran into is we would run into an issue in terms of scaling long term, right? Where it'd be very hard to manage like costs for people.
Right.
Because then it's like
Rosen token will arbitrage throughout the entire chains.
If you're building I don't know if you're building a service on like a deflationary asset, that's hard to keep like price normalization, and that in and of itself is negative for like long-term use, right? We build Rosen because we want people to use it. And that's ultimately where the Rosen token itself derives some type of collateral from, is transaction fees. So, we want to be able to scale, and, as we can grow into different markets and potentially connect different, let's say, systems, it's ultimately the flow of funds that's going to be valuable. But we need Ergo to succeed because the security mechanism is based on smart contracts on Ergo.
Yeah.
So, I think that like even, let's say like same reason, you have some tokens that they interact with infrastructure. Now, one benefit is everybody's going to be paying some transaction fee. Right? There's always going to be some benefit to having a token in an environment just based on that. And you're helping pay miners. But in terms of like, why is it needed? That's kind of a different question. That is actually a really good question to ask and explore. And, there's a lot of assumptions to uncover, both from the technical side, and then I guess you can look at like the social side. Why is there Pepe on every chain? Because people want to buy and sell and trade frogs, man. I don't know why, but it's not my job to judge.
That's a tough question to answer, because it's easy from this perspective of where we are saying, 2020 hindsight, where we see like, oh, then you wouldn't have Greasy Six, and you wouldn't have Comet,
yeah.
you wouldn't
I'm not against it.
or Cyberverse or that kind of thing. So
I'm not against it.
I think it's easy to answer the question from that perspective, but if we try to answer the question from a perspective of if these didn't exist, maybe we'd have a different answer, perhaps. Otherwise, I think we're too damn biased right now to answer that question correctly.
Well, there's just different perspectives, right? One of them is like, I don't know, even in crypto, I think there's a user base of people that are like, hey, if we can build out like open source decentralized technologies, we have the ability to really create unique and powerful new economic primitives and systems, and we can really do something that's better than kind of the central bank systems that we're locked in, where we have no power, and very few people on a hill somewhere go into a room, make a decision, and we all suffer or benefit. That's very akin to religion in my perspective, like choosing the Pope or something, or they have a Fed meeting, and then, whoa, look at what we did, and then everything downhill. You just adapt, and then you have another user base that's like, there's a lot of people in the world that I don't know. It kind of, you just use it to gamble, like the long-term perspective of like their economic well-being is maybe not the greatest, and they look at the future and say, okay, we have all this debt and all these social issues and all this and that, and if I can buy the right frog coin and it goes to the moon, then I can unplug from that system, and it becomes like a type of it becomes a type of lottery, and that is what it is. It's just I don't know, state of the world right now, that usually in it's kind of weird. Sometimes when people are not doing well, they get on like tilt when you're playing poker, where their risk assumption, their risk threshold, they, take crazier bets, because why not? And I would hope that if the first plan succeeds and we can offer, greater stability with these systems, that would kind of help people, I don't know, long term, in terms of not needing to feel that they need to make high risk decisions to be well in life. But that's the state of the world, man. State of the space. I understand that social consciousness is there. I just try to tell people, manage your risk, trades well, don't risk what you can't afford to lose, be responsible, yada, yada, yada. Nobody's going to fucking listen to me in that.
Yeah, nobody listens to that, Joe. Good try. Nice try. My question for Yasha is when integrating Rosen Bridge into the Ergo Dex interface when it comes out.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for, the Spectrum network in the back end.
Yeah, we're actually, talked to the Spectrum Ergo Dex team, recently about this idea of having Hummingbird bot integration in their framework. And if you have an asset, in multiple environments and you have common trading infrastructure, you can, arbitrage trade and manage liquidity and do all kinds of neat things. And that's a part of why being in multiple markets is a benefit, because you have access to different communities, different DApp applications, different, that may offer yield or DeFi potential. You have different transaction fees that may make one chain a little bit more economically efficient in terms of trading versus another, where you have different like profit thresholds in terms of arbitrage trading. So yeah, it's not, it's not negative to be in multiple environments. Any other questions?
Let's see. Wendy wants to know where the easiest place she can see a step-by-step guide that shows me how to be a watcher for a non-technical person. Thanks. There's 3 guides up. There's a Linux, a Mac, and a Windows guide on YouTube that are pretty basic. It walks us through everything, Wendy. So if you're having trouble with that, ping somebody in chat, not the fake support people, but ping chat in the support channel inside of Rosen Bridge, and somebody will check it out eventually. See where you're stuck.
All right. Where are we? Are you excited for Rare Evo? I think that's a good question. What is Sigmanauts doing?
Hell yeah, we're excited. So we talked about, we're still, our initial talk was that we're trying to find some catch, something that we can hand out at Rare Evo that people will see and be like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. Where'd you get that? Like Hosky had their little stuffed plushie that they gave out to everybody, that everybody's like, oh, God damn it, I want a stuffed plushie of this cute little, what is it? Husky dog. So something like that, it could be it could be a glizzy hot dog, that kind of thing. Somebody mentioned just serve hot dogs and style them like the glizzy dog or that kind of thing. But I think we run into some issues with how that's going to work. But yeah, the idea is we want a focal point there that we can hand something out that people are going to be like, wow, that's cool. Let's go to the Ergo booth and check it out. So that's our main focus. And then we'll probably do some fun things like we did before with giveaways, and NFT drops and those kind of things that will get people to install Terminus or Nautilus or Minotaur. Maybe we can have everybody install Minotaur on Android, Joe. See a competition there, and set up multi-sigs or something. So yeah, that's a plan. We're super excited about it. I'm going. I believe Mark the Shark's going from the Ergo mining, the Sigmanauts mining pool. Joe, you're going to drive up, right?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to be there. Yeah, Rare Evo does good events. They actually had like that's kind of like an after party thing in East Denver. I would say in terms of like the crypto events, if there's something from Rare Evo, consider being there. They're nice. There's like drinks and putt golf and food and.
Perfect.
Yeah. I can't say that I'm like Tiger Woods or anything, but I had a good time. Let's see. Is proof of useful work something possible on Ergo? I think it's better in a sidechain environment. Something that, again, proof of useful work. The concept has been around for a long time. It's something that, if fully realized, is extremely powerful, but there's also a lot of complexity and underlying questions that usually are ignored, and it's looked at as a marketing term. And from a security perspective, it is completely insane to like try to say we're going to rebuild the entire network on proof of useful work because it's good marketing, right? I'd say throw it in a playground, make sure it makes sense long term, and then after enough testing and like proper security analysis and kind of understanding the economic benefits, it might be worth considering. But we're, in my opinion, at least 5 years away from that in terms of like updating existing infrastructure versus like the risks.
Is that a Rosen Bridge 5 years, or is that a normal 5 years, Joe?
I have no idea, man. I'm not going to chase it. There's a lot of weird external, like you're kind of creating a service, right? And more often than not, it's like, okay, we're either going to do like some type of DeSci thing where we're solving some problem, And it's like, okay, well, why is that problem useful, and how is it going to be economically beneficial for those who solved it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, and then what do you do if you actually did solve the problem? Do you have to fork and upgrade and plug in a new problem? Or
Yep.
you create a service and like, if you're creating a service, you're now competing in a marketplace of parallel businesses that offer the same service. And like, what are your advantages? Like, I know there's a lot of like, we're going to have, proof of useful work AI. And it's like, do you realize like the hardware infrastructure these companies are throwing at AI, and it's all about computational density and speed. And how the hell are you going to compete with that in any decentralized way, unless you're just going to have a slower, AI? But if you plug that into your base, now you're competing with, companies that are throwing millions of dollars into hardware. And, some of the signing on for engineers these days is, whew, I'm in the wrong industry, man. It shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm not a fan on the term. I'm not a fan of the term on the face level, specifically because it makes people feel, or it makes people that don't know any better feel that proof of work is not a useful use of energy to secure a network and to mint tokens. So it gives that kind of misinformation there that proof of work is not useful, which it is. It's extremely useful.
It serves a security function. And it also serves as a collateral function for the coins that are created. So
Yeah.
I'd agree. But
Joe,
there's a lot of complexity there, and there's a lot of specifics missing always.
Yeah.
That I just, it sounds good, and it is good. Like, and like from a high level, if you could solve proof of useful work, it's fascinating. But, we're here. How do we get there? It's not a one-step process. If it were just a simple one-step process, everyone would already be doing it.
All right, Joe, who is the best question that you want to pick for the Boba reward?
Let's go with Watermelon. I've never seen Watermelon in chat and ask a question, and I don't even have to think about it because there's a question mark right in front of me. So congratulations, Watermelon, you're a winner.
All right, fantastic. Watermelon, DM me in Telegram, and we'll get you hooked up with the Bobber person to give you the drop. Fantastic. Hopefully Watermelon sees us.
Oh, this is a long AMA, man.
This is Yasha. What is going on with Yasha today? He must have had some coffee or something. Should we? You gonna read that question?
Sure. I think it's good. Do you think crypto has the potential to address capitalistic problems such as concentration of capital in a few hands and so on, or is it just a casino? It's both. Like, I really do think that crypto offers, the potential for better types of emission of money. And actually, I would recommend you watch the video on Sidechains that Alex and I put together, where, on a very simple level, what we're talking about is having, like a base digital commodity that's backed by energy input, and then you have a contractual layer that allows you to create derivatives on top of that, and then above that you have layers like chain cash that allow you to create voluntary monetary systems with different levels of collateral. And in theory, if you put all of those together, you could create a lot of different unique types of money systems that are backed by different levels of reserve trust and so on and so forth. So I think both. I personally I think there's a lot of value in what Bitcoiners often say is like, if you can fix the money, you can fix the world. But there's a lot of complexity in monetary systems. And there's a lot of assumptions. And sometimes I think that, I don't know, it's like lost a little bit, where the number grow up crowd, just isn't very principled.
Yeah, not just that. I think we're seeing a lot of dilution of the original intent of how these systems work, just because people are copying and pasting from fiat, and you almost have a perversion of this. So you do have these a lot of money pumping in to make more money and drain money from retail as far as that goes, or people who want to risk those kind of things. So you do see that.
Yeah, man. And when we start seeing VCs investing in meme coins, we're in trouble.
So yeah, I think people need to step back sometimes and look at projects like Ergo, who are in it for the principles that they're in it for and what they're doing and the financial tools they're building on top of it. Like, go for it.
I've gotten a lot of shit over the years where I'll do one of these and people say, you suck as a salesman. Like he should be out there dancing and saying, "Oh, you know, the number's gonna go up. We're all gonna get girlfriends, yada yada yada." And I don't know. It's not why I'm here. I there's a lot of different intents. There's a lot of different social cultures that kind of rise on top of these systems. But I've tried to be very transparent and clear in terms of like why, uh, I'm involved. I like open source software. I like to try to minimize trust assumptions in terms of like money creation. I like the idea of having energy as a collateral or having some form of like collateral that's backing currency. I like the idea of trying to create voluntary money systems where people can opt in and opt out and use that as a way to kind of grow collaboration and community. And sometimes even in like the casino side, I still see collaboration. I still see community. I still see humans coming together and bonding and talking, and there's value in that. There's value in it.
I'm by in no way means saying that stuff isn't fun or valuable. There's tremendous amounts of it, but when it's purposely engineered to extract value from you. So I mean, we can go back to the old story that I think we told a couple months ago, where we learned how some product tokens launch with market makers. Now, just a reminder for those of you who may not heard that, let's take squirrel meme tone. Or give me a meme coin, Joe. Give me a name. Turtle. Dog.
I'm sure. Just pick an animal, man. At this point, pick anything.
Let's take a lemming meme coin. Oh, that was something here, wasn't it? All right, let's take turtle meme coin. They have a launch. They airdrop some tokens to users to get the big hype up. There we go. Bonk. Yasha says bonk. They airdrop a bunch of tokens to people to get it started, to get the hype up. And then they tell the market maker, they say, look, here is liquidity. We do not want the price to fall below this amount after the launch. You need to sustain this price of $2 for 3 days after the launch, and then who gives a fuck? Then dump it. So what that does is people expect after an airdrop that the price is going to dump. So they start selling. The price isn't dumping; it's recovering because a market maker is buying up your cells directly, even before they hit. They'll match it in the same transaction sometimes, so that it doesn't affect the pool. And then what people do is that builds confidence. People is like, holy shit, this bonk coin launched and it's not dumping on when liquidity goes. This is a serious project that has legs. So people start pumping and pumping and pumping, and then the natural pump occurs. And then, of course, in 3 days when the market maker stops supporting it, they pull the legs out and everybody just fucking dumps and it's over and it's done. And you can see this time after time after time again. That's how it does it. It's a facade. It's just to suck money from you guys, and it sucks. But the tools are in place to do that. We've had quotes from market makers saying, look, we can make money on your token if it goes down, if it goes up, if it goes sideways. Doesn't matter. We're making money on it. So that's all it is. So in those kind of instances,
there's a lot of dirty games sometimes.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's a part of why I know myself, I know Alex, we've always tried to say, know your assumptions, ask good questions. And that's not a popular message in the crypto space, right? I don't care. I don't care if it's not. It's just good to, I don't know. It's good to ask, like, what is the intent? Because ultimately, I think that if you can understand assumptions, you get a clear idea what the intent of something is. And that's a good way to protect yourself in life.
And if somebody comes swinging back when you ask for what the intent is, then that's probably your answer right there, too. So it's always a good litmus test.
All right. Pretty much it for me.
Jamai says it's going to be an airdrop later today, so I guess we'll see. I wonder what they're airdropping.
I have no idea. I'm about to go get some breakfast. I hope everybody out there enjoyed the AMA, maybe learned something. Show up next time. We try to get people to cycle through here, different questions from different perspectives and all that. I never really watch these because I'm on them, but it's always better when I'm not. So kind of miss that being back. So now I don't get to watch the AMA. Is what it is. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.